Hello everyone, this is Satan Tripathi, and in today's video we will learn about use effect. Okay, so let's start. So basically, as you can see on the screen, use effects let us synchronize our component to external system. By external system, I mean any browser API or any network call or any sort of thing with which you want to synchronize your component. Okay, if you do not have a case in which you have to get data from somewhere else and update our component according to that, then you do not have to use effect. We use effect only when we need communication between our component and a external system. So as you can see in this box, in external system we have browser API, network call, or anything of this sort. Okay, so that's pretty much about use effect introduction. Now let's see how we can use effect in our component. So as you can see, this is our app component. In order to use effect in your component, you have to first import it. You can import it in the same way as use state. Okay, after this we have three ways we can use effects. Okay, you have to first look into this all one by one. Okay, so very first way of declaring use effect is like this: passing a function inside a use effect. So what will happen in this case is this function will be executed o- on each render of the component. Let me show you by an example. Let's say this is our app component. Okay, and this is our running version of this. Okay, let's say we reloaded it. So as you can see, effects is running on each render. App is rendering is coming from this stuff. So if you comment this out, okay, and if we reload the page, you can see effect is running on each render. So when you do not pass in another argument beside of this function, this use effect will make this function run in the initial render as well as in each render. Okay, by initial render what I mean is the first time this app component render on the screen. Okay, and by each render what I mean is whenever there is update in this component, the use effect will trigger this function because we are not giving it a second argument. Okay, so let's see. I Whenever I hit on count, you can see here the number, it will keep increasing. Okay, so this is a one way of using use effect. Now second comes when you pass a empty array in this. Okay, use effect you pass two things. What? First a function, second a empty array. In this case, the use effect will make this function run on initial render only. Okay, not on each render, only on initial render. Let's see, what do I mean to say this. Let's say this is our initial render. In the initial render we have this function run in our terminal. See, effect is running on first render. Sorry, we didn't save this. See, whenever I refresh this, effect is running on first render. Now when I hit count in this, count will increase, but we cannot see, we are not getting this thing again and again. Why? Because we passed an empty array in this. Okay, so when you pass empty array, it means you want this function to run on initial render only. Initial render means when the component mount on screen for the very first time. Okay, so this was the second way. Now comes the third way. So third way is, let's say if you want this function to run whenever there is change in any sort of state. Okay, so what we have to do is you have to pass that state in the array. You can pass one or more than one. Okay, so what happen in this case is useEffect will make this function run on initial render as well as when this is even thing changes. Okay, so let's see this in the example. So for this what we have to do is we have to make change in this state. This is even state, so we are making the change in this state whenever count will become even. Okay, so when that condition matches we will update this is even. Whenever this is even updated, it will this use effect will watch over is even, and whenever there is change in is even, this function will run. Okay, so let's see this in the console. So in the initial render, effect is running on first render, and when dependency changes, we are seeing this console, right? Now watch carefully when I make this. See why? Because zero was fulfilling this condition. Okay, now let's say if we make it 2, it will not run. When we make it 3, it again runs. Why? Because it is taking count number as a from a previous state, because we are calling this on click here, and at that time the count value would be this. So this is a constant concept of closures. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much about it. So these are the only three ways uh, with how we can use effect in our system. Thank you very much.